Welcome. My name is Joshua Young. Thank you for joining us for this Tech Academy session that we're hosting here at Adobe. I am the EMEA Solution Sales Leader for Content and Workfront at Adobe, and joining me is Kuhn. I'll let him introduce himself in a few minutes when he jumps in. But what he's going to do and what we're going to do is talk about supercharging your asset creation with content automation, Adobe Express, and Adobe Firefly GenAI and AEM Assets. This is extremely exciting. A ton of innovation has been happening here at Adobe to help really expedite the quick creation of content and assets, and that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. And this is important because the demand for high impact content continues to rise due to driving personalized experiences. If you can imagine the amount of content that needs to be created due to personalized experiences, I mean, it's just exploding significantly. And by the way, this background I needed to create quickly, so I used Firefly. I kept the watermark there on the bottom. You can see I did this very quickly in Firefly as an example of something that I can create. In this case, I wanted something that looked futuristic because I needed to create something quickly for this presentation. But Kuhn is going to talk in more detail how we can actually facilitate this even quicker within your workflow as you create content for your organization. And by the way, I really appreciated seeing the poll that a lot of you took as you came in and saw that at least the last look I had, 50% of the people responded to say that the complexity of content automation is one of the barriers to being able to implement in your organization. And that's actually one of the big things we want to help you understand, is it's not quite as complex as you think. And that's one of the things we're going to dig into today. But this is all because the content landscape is changing very, very fast. Customers are expecting more personalized experiences that I mentioned a minute ago. The number of supported channels, devices, markets, and formats are exploding, and it's just remarkable, from screens to all other kinds of devices that are just hitting the market very, very quickly. That, combined with personalization and needing to be able to supply the right content for the right person at that right moment on whatever device or channel they happen to be on, creates a scenario where so much content has to be created, and the use of Gen AI and automation helps to promise some change to increase efficiency. There's also, of course, some risks, and we're here as your co-pilot at Adobe to help you through that. And Kuhn's going to talk a little bit about that through this process that he goes through the demo. But all this is happening even though we need so many more assets than before. There's this increased pressure to optimize spend and demonstrate impact of content and being able to measure the impact of that content. And imagining doing that with this pressure of having flat budgets, but yet still needing to be able to produce at a rate that's just exploding. And this is where Gen AI plays a role, and this content automation concept can help you. And again, we want to show how that's not as complex as it may seem on the surface. And we've been building our AEM foundation for over a decade here. I'm sorry, the AI foundation for over a decade here at Adobe through Sensei and natively integrated automation with other Experience Cloud applications. But this is the point where I'm going to jump in and let Kuhn join us, introduce himself, and walk through the rest of this slide, and also talk about a demo to show you how this is actually set up in practice. So Kuhn, if you can, hey, there you go. How's it going?
Here I am. I'm well. Glad to be here. So I'll start with introducing myself. So hello, everyone. My name is Koen van Egem. I'm a solution consultant at Adobe. My focus is mainly on anything that is AEM or commerce. And today we're zooming in a bit on AEM assets and automating your asset delivery. And so, as Joshua mentioned, we've been playing around with AI for a long time within Adobe Analytics, within other Experience Cloud applications. We've been working with AI for a long time. So this is a long-standing history that we have. But in the past year, we've also seen a tremendous increase in generative AI, really generating stuff out of nothing. But to understand what we are doing with generative AI, you need to understand what our position is on generative AI. And it's actually quite simple. Our goal is not to replace any creative. We feel that human ingenuity is not something that you can simply replace. However, we feel like there's a lot of room where you can be more efficient. So on the creative side, Adobe Firefly helps you to test out new ideas, to quickly make edits, to make things that took a long time, make them easier. But also on the Experience Cloud, we're working really hard on some features that will allow you to generate text, to generate variations of text, not to replace any work that you would do, but rather to help you explore a bit what the possibilities are. And so we've been working a long time on this AI foundation, and this is important because you need a lot of content. Anyone that has gone to Adobe Summit will have also heard about content supply chain, where we explain that there's a lot of content needed. Take, for example, a brand with 1,000 products. We can map that one to one and say 1,000 products means 1,000 assets that are necessary. But when we're being real, any product needs more than one asset. So if we have 25 assets per product, we're already at 25,000 assets that are needed to be created. Exploring further in different languages and then different variations, before you know it, you have a million different variations that you need to create. And that's not feasible to do that by hand. And that's where we let AI and automation take the wheel to make you more performant in your asset creation. So how do we do that? Well, first and foremost, it's important to accelerate the creative ideation and production. You can do that within our creative applications, but also within our Experience Cloud applications. For example, you can automatically tag any system that you upload to AEM as a cloud service. Or you can, and then I'll switch to the next slide, use content automation within AEM Assets, which allows you to really do a lot of different things. For example, any of these creative actions are now possible to be done from your digital asset management system. Think about Photoshop actions, which are a list of different transformations that you want to do on a picture, or a smart object replace, which will really easily allow you to make a banner even more personalized for different target groups. You can remove the background, you can mask images, but you can also have your own Lightroom presets so that any image that you upload to your DAM really is in line with the look and feel of your brand. And so us as Adobe, we know our creative applications as no other. And we have now gotten to really native integrations between AEM assets and these creative applications. So during the demo, we'll get into more detail on that. Then it's also more and more important to democratize the production of activation-ready assets. Right now, if I have an asset and I want to create a social media campaign about it, I need to go to a creative who then needs to take the template, create your social media post, and then send it back to you, which is such a hassle because in the end, anyone can fill in a text and fill in an image. And that's where Adobe Express comes in. Adobe Express is really a marketing tool that allows you, a creative tool at least, that allows you to create marketing content without having to be a creative. Your creative team can create for you several templates that you can use. And then as a business user, I can, within the lines of my brand, create a new post. Of course, this also integrates with our generative AI, with Adobe Firefly, so that even when you don't have all the content that you need, you can create anything you want. And lastly, and most interestingly, in the near future, AEM assets will be integrated with Adobe Express, which means that any asset that you have within the digital asset management system can be opened up in Adobe Express, and you can create new variations on this to use, for example, on social media or for a banner, which is really awesome. So because you can then have your marketeers at the steering wheel, this also means that there is a lower cost and that there's a lower turnover time because you can simply do it yourself. So what are we here for then today? Well, we have a demo prepared for you for our new brand called Adobe, which is a meal services company. And for our meal services company, there's a few things that we want to create. First, we want to create several personalized variations of a banner that had been created by our creative team. We'll do that using the content automation within AEM Assets. Then we'll also show how you can upload new images to AEM Assets and have them become transparent, which is really useful in certain use cases, for example, for products. And finally, we'll also show how you can then use Adobe Express to create a production-ready social media post while following all of the guidelines of your marketing team. And so what you'll see is that, and Josh already mentioned it, a lot of people say that the technical difficulty of getting this set up is really difficult. So what we've tried is to make it as simple as possible to get this set up in AEM so that with little work, you can really move mountains. So let's now see that in action. Here we are in AEM Assets. Let's first have a look at what I configured in AEM. Within AEM, under the Assets menu, I have my processing profiles, which are different actions that I want to take on an asset when they get uploaded. And you can see here that I have two actions for my Adobe campaign. First, I have a banner, and when opening it up, you can see that in here, I want to do a Photoshop Smart Object Replace. I have my Photoshop template here, which looks like this. And in this Photoshop template, we've selected the background as a smart object, which means that we can start replacing this background, generating different variations of the same banner for different interests. For example, this is some Asian food, but maybe I'm more interested in vegan food, or maybe I'm interested in tapas. So depending on your interest, you can then start creating personalized variations of our banner. We can then give the new rendition a name, because of course we are not going to modify the original, and we'll call this our banner. And actually, that's all there is to it. We then apply this processing profile to our folder, and that's everything that we need in order to do this automation within AEM. Likewise, we talked about creating transparent images, for example, for products. In this content automation, you can see that I simply select the image cutout option, and that's all there is to it. Flipping over then to AEM Assets, let's see that in action. First, we'll make an image transparent. So we'll upload this image of a meal on a plate with some background to AEM Assets. This asset will now start processing and will run through the normal procedure that any asset in AEM does. We generate renditions, we ensure that any custom actions that you have defined that need to happen are also happening. And then we can see that it's now processing, because it is now sending it to the Creative Cloud service and removing that background from our original image. While that's happening, let's already go here to our Adobe banner. You can see that we have our banner here in the system and that I can upload some images here. So let me take these images of different types of food and upload them. And so I'm uploading now 3 different assets. And what this will do is this will generate a version of the banner for each of these assets. In this case, I kept it to 3 because we don't have endless time. But you can imagine that when you upload 100 or 500 different images for really personalized versions, this is a tremendous gain because you only have to upload the images once and then the banners are automatically created. By now, we can also see that our transparent image has been generated. So you can see that the background was completely removed and we can use this image. I'll already download this once it's ready. Bit impatient. And in the meantime, you can see that here our banners are showing up as well. So really, just by uploading a few images, we were able to generate all of these different banners that we can then use to really personalize and make it an experience. In this case, we took different types of food, but you can also do this, for example, with an icon of every country, the Eiffel Tower in France, the Atomium in Brussels, and so on and so on. There we go. Our transparent image is ready. So let's download this from AEM, and we can then use it in just a second. What's really interesting, though, is that right now, I'm going to switch to Adobe Express like this. But in the near future, I will be able to say, edit this asset in Adobe Express. And then from within AEM Assets, I'll be able to do anything that I will show you in just a second. So for those of you not familiar with Adobe Express is really the epitome of our creativity for all. We really want it to be available for everyone. And that does mean that sometimes for businesses, you'll need some guardrails. In this case, you can see that I have a brand defined, the Adobe brand. You can see that my logo is defined. Some of the main colors of my brand are defined, as well as the typeface, some graphics, and some templates that can be used. And so you can see here on the right that this is how posts that you will create with this Adobe brand will look like. This is great for consistency because this means that even though I'm not a creative, even though I don't even have access to all of the Photoshop files of my brand, I have this central place to keep everything and to reuse what I need. So let's now create a social media post. I'm thinking of an Instagram story. So let's select Instagram story. And then from within the Adobe Express editor, I can choose from my brands, the Adobe brand, and choose to use our Adobe Instagram story template. So I've already opened it up here. You can see that I now have a really beautiful image of my Instagram story, which is really easy to change. So let's think of a promo. Let's say that you get 20% off your first box. You can see that this goes to the next line. I can simply make this a bit wider and change it. You get 20% off your first box. And we can say, it's always time for good food. We can then add a validity to our promo. And just by clicking it, I can change it. So my design team foresaw this template for me. They designed it in a way that is really consistent with our brand experience. And then I can simply click in and change what I need to change. There we go. So we now here also have this image to the top. I actually want to show my food in like a colorful swirl, just to give it a bit of a zinger. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna add some media. But I don't really have an image like that, not in my brand library, not in my digital asset management system. So let's use Adobe Firefly to now create a background. So we'll select a square background. We'll position it so that it is in the place of where our image needs to be. And then I can give it a description. So for example, I can say colorful red and yellow swirls. And just like that, Adobe Firefly will now generate a few different versions of our image. You can see that this is what it creates. I'm not entirely happy with it yet, so I can start refining. For example, I can choose for it to be in an art style. I can choose for it to be quite iridescent. I want it to glow a bit. And let's regenerate. There we go. This already looks more like what I want. And then I also want to add that transparent image from AEM Assets. So let's choose that. As you can see, it was suffixed with transparent because it came from the transparency content automation. And I can upload it. and position it here in my image like this. So this is already great, but I think we need a plate for the food to be on. So let's generate another image. We'll choose this time a photorealistic image, and we'll say an ornate porcelain plate, and let's generate that. So this is great. This is exactly what we needed, but this has a background. But that's no issue. From within Adobe Express, I can simply choose to remove the background from this image, which will remove the white background that we have. And now I can start positioning my plate below my food. There we go. And just like that, we now have the food on the plate with our generated background. Now I can download this image. And what's really cool is that in the near future, because of this integration with AEM, not only will you be able to download it to your file system, but you'll actually be able to save it to AEM Assets, really making it easier than ever to quickly create a social media post. And as you can see, it's totally in line with our brand.
This all is part of this idea of being able to manage your content as you go through a supply chain, because what you just stepped through might actually have a number of different contributors, from the people that maybe create and own the original asset to a social media marketing team, to the brand asset owners that maybe have information around what the brand identity needs to be and all the guidelines, and being able to collaborate across those teams to make process that you just showed seamless is extremely important, and that's something that is necessary to gain the efficiency and speed that we want. And so the idea here is we want to be able to simplify the ability of planning something like a campaign that you just showed, producing that campaign and being able to produce all the assets necessary, delivering that campaign or elements of the assets for that campaign that might then get utilized across even other channels, because perhaps that campaign actually touches a ton of different channels, but also importantly, being able to analyze the effectiveness of both the resources and the people that were used to do all the work. And was that done in a timely manner, meeting schedules and expectations, but also being able to understand how effective through data these assets are being used actually out in the world. Are you achieving the KPIs that you'd like in terms of usage of these assets, usage of this content, whatever it happens to be, to make sure that you're achieving your goals as a business? So there's a whole, we're just kind of touching a sliver of this content supply chain, which is actually a much broader story that has a backbone in collaboration that's meant to be able to get all of these cross-functional teams and potentially even agencies and external partners that you might work with collaborating together in order to deliver a holistic vision of a campaign or project, whatever it happens to be. We've talked to a number of customers about this, and there's kind of big things that might sit in a big content supply chain story, and then there might be smaller projects that might actually iterate relatively quickly. But it's all important to be able to get some transparency and have your team working together, and AI and all the things that you just showed helps expedite and make that so much faster, which is our objective, is to help make sure that we're reducing creation of things that don't actually need, digital waste that don't get used, helping people find the things that do exist already in your ecosystem and move very quickly when you want to use those assets or pieces of content, and automate the parts of it that can be done very quickly through automation, like what we just saw a few moments ago. So this is all part of this content supply chain story. So all right, Kuhn, you want to come back and maybe we can see if anybody has any questions. We'd love to, help answer some questions if you have any. Somebody asked about the plan data, the integration with Express and AEM. I'm not sure exactly, because I'll tell you, things are moving so rapidly. All these innovations are happening so quick. it's right around the corner, but I don't know if you know anything more than I do, Kuhn, on this subject, because you've been working through it on this demo.
The official reply is soon. We are laying the final hand on it. We're ensuring that everything works the way it's supposed to work, and it will become available soon through all of our AEM as a cloud service customers. So be on the lookout on the release notes page of AEM as a cloud service, as that will probably be the first place where you'll see that integration popping up.
But it's all happening so rapidly nowadays. It's quite remarkable, actually. So maybe I can ask some questions to you. I'm going to put you on the block here while we wait for questions, if that's okay. Um, I think this is really exciting, and the customers that you've talked to, Kuhn, because you're working very closely as part of working with customers on these topics. How many different channels are you seeing customers needing to supply content for? I mean, I like how you demonstrated the fact that there's this content, this social campaign, and that's exploding as more social channels and things come up for how the one of our customers might communicate with their end customers. But how many on average do you think the customers you talk to are having addressing content for how many different digital channels?
Yeah, it easily goes up to 10 because when you think about it, only for your web channel, you're already talking five, six different versions of your asset. And then most companies that I talk with, they're on Facebook, they're on LinkedIn, they're on Instagram. Instagram has different formats, LinkedIn has different formats. So it really, really goes very fast. Um, and when I talk with them, not only do they all say like we have so many channels, but also they change so fast. 5 years ago, everyone was all in still on Facebook, while now people are more all in on Instagram. Who knows what people will be going for in 5 years? So you really need this supply chain that is automated where you can easily make changes because it's just not feasible to redo all of your existing assets for a new platform. You need to have that automated.
Yeah, and I think what's interesting is the way that the speed of what needs to be created for these channels. There's kind of a time to live of relevance when you're creating content for something like Instagram or some of these other channels, because the consumer has an expectation that things are going to be moving rapidly. So you might end up having to create multiple assets for a single campaign to continue to keep that fresh because of the expectations that we as consumers have and the personalization we expect when we're consuming content across these channels. So I'm happy, it's interesting as the poll is back here and people continue to favor this idea of it being a complex undertaking. I really hope that we've helped to demonstrate that it's not quite as complex as it may seem, although a legacy tech stack is still kind of like trailing behind, which is also a big indicator. And that's like the things we're doing to make these updates so quickly in order to make sure we're staying very modern with all the parts of our stack to help make this happen. What's the next big thing or feature that you already know of that comes out soon that you're excited about the most?
Shall I take this
Wow.
one?
Go for it.
Well, it was announced at Adobe Summit, and it took some time to get used to the idea because it's something radically different. But we've been working on the next gen composability for AEM, as we call it, and that's something really cool. Our engineering team really took a fresh set of eyes and really went for something that is so simple to use and that allows you to create content at such a scale, which brings us also back to what we were saying earlier. You need more content than ever. You need to create more content than ever. That's not only assets, that's web pages, that's campaigns. And that next gen composability really helps you to do that at lightning speed. So that's something that I'm really excited about to see how that will evolve.
Yeah, and how that sits within the content supply chain, because it's all about moving quickly and not just the speed. In that case, it's interesting because it's around uh, content, and it's not just the speed of being able to create content, but also the performance and the speed at which it can be delivered to people. And that's also equally important as we consume content. So This question about how many people would we recommend in-house creative team that use these tools? Well, part of the intent is to make it easier so that more people, and this idea of democratizing content, to allow more people to be able to create content because of the speed that it's necessary, the speed required, and empowering more people. So, I mean, it's hard to say a specific number, but it's likely more people than you may think because we want to make it simpler for people to be contributors to the content space because everybody has a voice and should be able to do so. And we're creating tools like Express to make it simpler for people to do that. Boy, people are coming in with questions now. This is great. Sorry, I'm reading this. Do you want to answer this next question, the last question there, Kun? I don't know if you upload different pictures to the template. It looks like it got cut off.
So I think I get the gist of it. Basically, the way that we configured it is you select a certain automation, and an automation is linked to a Photoshop template, right? So if I have multiple templates in that directory, nothing changes because you select the template that you want to use for your automation. So that's why we kind of have that structure of having the templates in a dedicated folder, because it's a logical place to keep all your templates in a central place. And then within your processing profile, you can select the template that you want to use for the automation. So there's a lot of really interesting videos on Experience League on that. So I highly recommend to check that out as well, because it's really easy to set that up. I also saw a question coming in on when the customer private generation model for Adobe Firefly will be available. Currently, it's not yet available, but it's in the works. So we're working really hard on that. As Joshua said, it's moving really fast, but we don't want to overstep. We want to make sure that we're doing things right, that we're keeping it safe for businesses. And because of that, we are taking the time to do it correctly. So yeah, it will come soon.
Yeah. I have a question for you, Kun, and what your perspective is. I think watching this demo and some of the other demos that I've seen, AEM Assets has become even more of a backbone to help kind of glue all these things together. Where do you see it sitting within this architecture that also incorporates creative teams working with these creative tools, and how, kind of important do you see AEM Assets being in order to make this kind of whole process work well?
So for me, and that's how I always explain it when I'm talking with my customers, AEM Assets is really the digital heart of what you are doing. Yes, data is king and data is important, but if you don't have the correct digital assets and the correct content to do something with that data, then you're nowhere. And so AEM Assets is really that digital heart that stitches together all of your different themes. Your creative team can use AEM Assets to use photos that have been approved in the past, or to look at campaigns that have been done in the past. Can be used for marketing teams to centrally keep all of the assets related to a campaign. It can be used by content editors to really easily find back that one image. And we're keeping on adding functionality to create really AEM Assets as a product that anyone can use. For example, in AEM as a cloud service, you'll have a search first experience where you can just search for what you're looking for, because that's your use case, right? You don't care about metadata or about tagging or anything. You're just looking for an image. And so we're keeping on adding functionalities so that everyone can use AEM Assets in their own way. And that's a bit the beauty of it. There is no one view or one way to use AEM Assets. Everyone can find their own way to use it. Even as a company, some companies use it to even keep their work in progress creative files. We allow that in the sense that you can do that. And if you do that, it will work great, but we won't force you to do that. So really, it's all up to how you see that as a company. And it's a really fun conversation to have with customers. So if you have questions on that, feel free to reach out to your Adobe representative, because we can always help you to really get to that next level level of productivity.
Thank you. That was a very detailed response. Yeah, I thought I had a good question to ask you there. All right. Maybe you can answer these last couple questions that came in while you were speaking, because I think they would be very relevant for you. Um, can content automation happen only in AEM as cloud service or on an AEM Assets environments as well? Um,
I
well,
would need to
this,
check that. I'm sorry.
what's it? Yeah.
I,
I'm,
I would need to check that.
yeah.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest.
And then the next question is, different versions, do you still have a publish each image separately for each target group, or can you publish a container to all and according to tags to automatically show image relative for the target group? So a couple questions
That's a
embedded in
very
one.
layered question. I don't think I'll be able to answer that here. But if you have a concrete use case, if you have something in mind, like this is what we are trying to do, reach out to your Adobe team, because we'll be able to help you with a bit more details on that. So be sure to reach out to your Adobe team for that.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that wraps up the time, and I appreciate everybody joining, and of course, Kuna, all your hard work in walking through this demo. Thank you so much. I was waiting for an appearance of your cat, because often your cat shows up somewhere in a demo, but I didn't see it this time around. But that's okay. My cat is over here in the background somewhere. Thanks again, everybody, for joining us.